strongly believe in collaboration. If we could do all of this ourselves on our campuses, we would not be here, but clearly we cannot. I strongly believe my motto is collective success. We will be successful together, and if we work only by ourselves, we will not get there. So make sure that you take time to interact with your peers here, business partners, however you can, because even if you don't need them today, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, something will trigger a thought that you will think back to this event or any other event you go to where you will say, oh, yeah, I talked to Bill that time and I need to reach out to Bill and ask them this question. Or you may have no need for a service from a business partner today, but someday you will. So please make sure that you made the most out of being here. All right, so I'm going to stop talking for a little bit and turn it over to the panel. I'm going to give them about 2 minutes to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their campus and what they do. Cindy?
Certainly. Good morning, everyone. I'm Cindy Torstveit. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Facilities Planning and Management at UW-Madison. We have over 900 acres on the campus proper on an isthmus and about 25 million gross square feet. I'm in charge and lead the campus transportation, environmental health and safety divisions, as well as physical plant operations, campus planning and design, real estate and capital budget. Trying to think and Office of Sustainability. So we have quite a big operation and a lot of challenges and opportunities. But I have over 30 years of experience. I'm new to higher ed. This is my first HEF conference, so I've been really enjoying meeting my Big Ten peers the last 5 years, as well as many of you here in the room. But I started out with state government and led their facilities for about 10 to 15 years, as well as worked for the Public Service Commission on energy. So having the sustainability and some of those other operational aspects kind of is right in my wheelhouse, as well as the planning and design as a former alum of UW-Madison and interior design. So,
Tim?
Tim Smith. I am our Vice President for Facilities Development and Management at ASU, so that includes our design, construction, and our operations for facilities. ASU as a whole, welcome to our campus. This is the Tempe campus. We have technically 4 campuses here in the metro area of Phoenix, and we also have properties in downtown Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and then we inherited or we acquired a campus in Bermuda within the past couple of years. So we get around a little bit. The things that will strike you about ASU is probably the size more than anything else. Our enrollment is exceeded 180,000 students, of which you'll possibly run into 80,000 of them out here in the Tempe campus, on any given day. So this is really a city within a city. This development here, Alex was actually involved with it. If you didn't know, he was our previous vice president for facilities at ASU, and is probably responsible for me getting stuck with his job. And also, just a side note, it is his birthday. He's a little shy, so if you're at the bar, just buy him a drink. He's afraid to ask. But anyways, we're excited that you guys are here to join us. We've got many initiatives going on. We're currently in the process of building the John McCain Center. It's not a presidential library, but it'd be something similar to that. That's going to be on the other side of the Tempe Town Lake. We're starting a new med school. So our School of Health will be at our downtown Phoenix campus. So we're in the process of building a new facility for that. And then we're wrapping up a brand new research facility out at our Polytechnic campus called ISTV 12. Really focused a lot more on, basically the semiconductor industry, AI, lots of different things that are going to equip our students with jobs for tomorrow, because part of Phoenix right now it's a semiconductor boom area. So from a construction standpoint, they are really eating up all the trades. And so I assume a lot of you guys are struggling to find qualified trades to work at your locations. In Phoenix, it's been equally challenging because you got companies that are willing to go and pay a plumber 120 grand a year, just to be on staff and on site for them, and it's hard for us to compete as a public institution with that. But with that, I'll turn it over to Alex.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alex Kohnen. I think Tim just introduced me, so I'll try to move on. Since we're here at the Misery Loves Company tour right now, let's talk. I'm at the small school here, Vanderbilt. I promised Mike Perez, who I took over for in January, is back there, and we have an agreement that he'll agree with everything I say if I don't say anything bad about him. So we'll just say it's roughly 12 million square feet and 400 plus acres. I left ASU because I needed a break because Michael Crow is just all the time, and I got Daniel Diermeyer. So now we're opening a campus in South Florida, one in New York City, and looking at elsewhere we can expand on. And we just issued about another 700 million in construction. So I'm just not that bright a guy apparently. But yeah, same kind of challenges as Tim. Living in a dynamic city that's growing and trying to compete for talent is a huge challenge for us too. So. With that, I'll turn it over to Lalit.
Thank you. As you can see, we have an amazing panel with a lot of experience here. So we'll jump into the state of higher education facilities here. How many of you were on the Jeep tours yesterday? All right. I hope you had fun. And you're probably thinking, what does Jeep tours have to do with this state of facilities talk right now? So this was our driver. We were in Jeep number 3. Arguably the best Jeep that was in the convoy. His name is Han, and Han was very passionate. He had a philosophy in life that he was very openly sharing with us. And the more and more he talked, Cindy was with in the same Jeep, we started observing his points were very relevant to what we do in facilities. He talked about modulation because if you went on a Jeep tour and there's a lot of rocks and a lot of pebbles and sand and other things, you have to modulate how you do the braking and the acceleration. You don't want to just take off really quickly, or you don't want to sudden brakes because it is very difficult for the people in the back, and it's not good for the Jeep either. And there was an example of it, Jeep number 2. If you were in Jeep number 2, you know what I'm talking about. It struggled a little bit. And Han, every time he saw that Jeep number 2 was struggling, he would actually make a point about it. It's about modulation. You can't just take off. You can't just brake. And there was one time, I think you were on 3 wheels for a good 30 seconds, Jeep number 2 was. Yeah. We saw it from the back. But his philosophy in life is consistency and modulation. And I don't know how many times he used those 2 words, consistency and modulation. And the more and more we started talking, we were like, that's what we do in facilities. We keep facing challenges, whether it's the sand, whether it's the big boulder that you have to get over. Sometimes we have the right tools at our disposal. Sometimes we don't have the right tools at our disposal. But just like you all, just like the Jeep driver, we all figure out how to get through and come to the other side of that trail. So that's what I thought of when we were looking at this morning session. I was like, that is very, very relevant. And his solution is consistency and consistently delivering what we were promised to deliver. The fact that he promised that we were going to safely get to the trail and safely get back from the trail to our hotel, that's what his promise was. And he was going to deliver it by being consistent, not by having any jarring motions for us. So that's what I wanted to show Han's picture here. With that, we'll jump straight into the content now. So just like the trail yesterday in the Jeep tour, there are multiple converging challenges that we are facing in higher education facilities. We have our deferred maintenance, the project delivery, decarbonization, competing for limited resources, the staffing thing that Tim just talked about. So with all these challenges, how are these issues manifesting on your campus? And Tim, since you mentioned about that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. So believe it or not, on Thursday night, Friday morning, the east side of our campus was a lake. We had a 8-inch fire suppression line near one of our buildings that ruptured. It was one of our city lines. Luckily, with good response, we were able to clean that up. So if you were out walking our campus and didn't notice that, that's probably a good thing. We're slowly getting that building back for operations because classes will start back up tomorrow. And that's pretty much been fairly consistent for the past year. I mean, right after our commencement ended in May, our central plant had a water line fail, and it flooded out our entire central plant basement where all of our pumps are at. So we have a little over 60 pumps in there that provide all the chilled water, cooling capacity for and the condensate return for the steam system that were wiped out, and we were on temporary equipment for the entire summer. So when we're talking about like the aging infrastructure, you can look around and it's like the facade of things of the buildings. We've got a bunch of brand new buildings, but we still got the old. And part of our challenge is convincing our leadership that we need to continue to invest in the older infrastructure. The challenge is going to be the capital that the university, especially at ASU, is willing to make, because our president, President Crow, he very aggressive. He's always about what's next. So it's trying to get him to look at things in the rearview mirror to bring everything else along. That's like yesterday's news. That's not exciting. It's not sexy. So part is how do we tell the story better to try and get some of those funds. But unfortunately, I think and other universities have been going down this road of having to explore P3s for whether it's utility generation and/or distribution options, things along those lines. And I don't think we're too far from that, to be honest. It's probably going to be at least something that we'll have to put on the table and really kind of weigh the pros and cons of, because if we're going to build a new med school and then if President Crow's around after that, like what's going to be next? Because he'll have something, and just don't know what it's going to be. So we just need to stay kind of ready and nimble and ready to respond, because more failures are coming. There's no doubt about it. So.
Gotcha. Cindy?
Yeah, I think we're facing some of the same challenges. We have about 2.6 billion of deferred maintenance right now. That's our new number or more. So we've got about 60% of our buildings are over 25 years old, 40% are over 50 years old. So we've had a lot of the same challenges that you're talking about in terms of emergency repairs, emergency maintenance, as well as, we're still trying to move the needle, and we have about $3 billion or 14% of our portfolio in design and construction right now. So while we're trying to move the needle, we're still facing a lot of these headwinds in how do we fund it, how do we move forward with some of these new initiatives. We have a RISE initiative that our chancellor has put out, which is research, innovation, and scholarly excellence, which they're talking about 50 new PIs that, of course, come with staff in the next year, and about 150 over the next 2 years to 5 years. So we're trying to figure out how we meet those challenges while still tackling some of these other challenges that we have. We've talked a little bit about P3 on our campus, but the politics around capital project delivery are much more intense, and we don't have bonding authority. So we're getting less and less funding from our partners at the state, and we're trying to figure out how do we move forward. We're trying to really tell our story better. How do we explain to them what we need and that we can't do it alone. We can do a lot in fundraising. We have our first 100% gift grant building that's over $200 million. I think it's 260, but it's 100% gift raised, which is a first time for us. But how do we do more of that, but knowing that those donors are few and far between, right? So we're going to have to partner with our legislators and our state partners in order to meet all of the infrastructure needs that we have, as well as our research and educational goals. So.
Nice. Alex, no deferred maintenance at Vanderbilt Private Institute, right?
Yeah, I'm going to say that. I'm going to say something controversial because no one else did. That is, I don't believe in deferred maintenance. I think it's a ridiculous number. It's like the national debt, 2.6 billion. Yeah. Like, who cares at this point, right? Let's just move on. So I think what we're trying to do is look at scheduled versus unscheduled maintenance activities. That's what really affects our end users, is every time there's an outage, every time there's an unplanned event, and how that ratio works and plays into it. Because I do believe that, I think it's a valuable number. I'm saying a little bit of hyperbole here, but I don't think it really resonates with anyone. I think we've all just become immune to it. You can sit there and speak on the highest mountain that we got to do something about deferred maintenance. The reality is we're probably going to do a capital project that's going to wipe some of that out at some point, and we're going to move on, or we're just going to ignore it because it just doesn't matter enough to get to it at some point. So it's just going to sit there, and we're never going to make progress on it. So really want to attack what matters. I will say, to Vanderbilt's credit, the board has started asking us questions about that as they see the capital program moving higher and higher. What are you doing about your existing infrastructure, which I think is really insightful on their part, and they want to hear kind of a report back on that. And we've tried to kind of say, well, let's talk about really where we're at. And I think the PI issue is a huge problem. All of your flagship institutions out there, you're all thinking that F&A is going to cover all the costs, so let's go for more research. Let's go for more research out there. But you only have so many resources available to you, so the deferred maintenance keeps moving farther and farther down the list. But when you start talking about the number of times people can't utilize their space in unscheduled maintenance, that has a little bit more of a resonation with them. So that's my 2 cents.
Got it. So I'll come back to you then, Alex. So if deferred maintenance versus the difference between scheduled and unscheduled, what is your biggest priority when you are looking at moving the needle forward for Vanderbilt?
Well, I think everybody's got the same issue, right? It's all of our mechanical equipment. We ride on borrowed time. My favorite comment, how many people have heard this question before? Well, when's it going to fail? Okay, everyone has, right? I don't know when it's going to fail. I do know it's going to fail. You know, I sat in Michael Crow's office a year ago and said, you know, this is going to blow up. And he goes, well, when? And I said, you know, nature's 100 bazillion and oh, it's never lost. It's going to win at some point. And he said, yeah, water's the ultimate solvent. I said, well, then you know. He goes, yeah, but we can't afford to do that. That's not a priority right now. I go, it will be when you're on the evening news. It will be when they talk about the campus is shut down because a chilled water line that's been there for 72 years has never been replaced. So I think it's the mechanical equipment. We've got to start thinking about that. And honestly, we've got to get better at design. Everything's a prototype right now. You have to carry 3.5 million line items if you want to have all your gear in stock, which none of us are ever going to do. We're never going to encumber that much capital. So we really got to work with the design community. You know, we spend an inordinate amount of time picking the right GC, but we don't spend nearly as much time picking the right designer on it. And we declare victory at the ribbon cutting. You know, as soon as they cut the ribbon, we get an award for the building. Who knows if that was a good building? I have a lot of crap buildings that look real pretty right now, and that's not going to help us out. So how we evaluate buildings at the 5-year mark is going to be really important if we're going to get in front of this, because we're just going to continue to have this conversation for generations to come unless we figure this out soon.
So Tim, I'll maybe come to you with a different question. You mentioned P3 as a potential opportunity, but what else are you doing with your workforce when it comes to whatever services stay in-house for you? How are you addressing filling those gaps when you have all the competing industry that's trying to steal that skilled labor from you? So any strategies?
I mean, number one, as far as culture that we create for our workforce, is how do you make ASU a great place to work? And how do you treat people the right way so that they don't have a reason to leave, you know? Because a lot of times you can hire somebody in and the salary you offer them at that point in time is like they agreed to do it. Somewhere along the way, if people are leaving for money or resources or something else like that, it's generally probably something else that's going on, unless, you know, you got people that are advancing and ready for their next opportunities and whatnot. So, you know, one of the things that we did this past year is we created a scholarship for our employees, spouses, and dependents. One of the unique things about ASU is we offer a tuition benefit for all those folks, but that only covers I shouldn't say only, it does cover basically the tuition costs, but a lot of the program fees, things like that, you'll be out of pocket for. So it's a great benefit, but creating a scholarship is another way for us to go and enhance that. So all those out of pocket expenses, you know, if a parent that's working for us and wants to have their son or daughter live in a residence hall or something, you know, with a meal plan, that's like another $15,000 for the year, and it's just like that's a big amount of money. So hopefully things like creating scholarships shows that benefit back to the workforce that, hey, we're invested in them. Trying to, offer as much development opportunity for them to do things if they want exposure to different things, of not just shutting down new ideas. If people come forward with a better way to, get creative about solving our problems, then if we're not willing to listen as leaders, then that's part of the problem, and why people would want to leave. So.
Right. Cindy, any thoughts on workforce development?
I think we've done a lot in our workforce development, but I think I'm going to flip back over to what Alex's point was on deferred maintenance, because I think you're absolutely right. In the planning and design, we've been doing a lot of work in quality assurance, quality control on the front end during design, and then in the turnover, so that we know what we've got as we get there. And, how are we going to solve all of these problems? It's planning. We're doing a facilities condition assessment, a space utilization assessment, so that we're not maintaining space that we're not using. And then we can have more targeted maintenance and redesign of spaces that'll really impact the campus. But we have to support our workforce, to your point. What we're seeing is that with the trades, they're not only, we can't hire them for our maintenance, we also can't necessarily get them on our construction jobs because the contractors are having issues. So we're trying to really think about our workforce development, keeping the trades that we have, supporting them through programs like Invest in Success at APPA, and many other programs, to make sure that they have the tools that they need and want to stay with us, versus go make the big paycheck someplace else, that there's value there.
Right. So looking ahead, this is generally for the whole panel, what creative technologies or solutions do you foresee that can help you tackle some of these challenges that we have talked about? What innovations do you see that are coming down the pike that can alleviate some of these stresses on our workforce and our departments? Probably start with Alex.
Oh man, can the Siemens guys get up and leave for a minute? I want to talk about building controls and how much I...
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, you can stay. I think as we get smarter about controls and we get smarter about using our sensor technology, we're going to see a real revolution here, but it's going to take open controls, open source. And the Siemens guy's going to tell me we're open, and I'm going to laugh at his face, but that's okay. We'll meet later. And we need to utilize that data. We have a lot of information, but we have a lot of data, but we don't have a lot of information right now, and we need to start getting better about it. I mean, how many people think that they have space that's less than 10% utilized on their campus, and it's a significant chunk of what they own right now? I'm guessing most of you, right? So how can we utilize our occupancy sensors to figure out, and by the way, you're still cleaning it on the regular schedule that you're cleaning everything else, even though it's 10% utilized. Does it need that level of effort right now? Can we do more to do predictive maintenance till we only really focus on the stuff that we think's gonna break? So I can answer the question, when's it gonna break? Well, if I put it up in the cloud right now, we've got a 95% confidence interval. This is gonna last another month. So we might wanna change it now. I think that's really important. We need to have a standard, that we need to get aggressive about it, that we need to start changing out some of these pneumatic systems and getting our digital controls right for it, so we can start doing more scheduled versus unscheduled maintenance. I think it's going to be really a powerful enabler. But if we're going to have vendor lock-in and we're going to have to wait for the industry to be non-competitive with each other, then we're going to have a real problem on our hands, because why innovate when you're already captured, when you're already held hostage? So that's really where I want to see the industry move.
Gotcha. Tim?
So you'll see our CIO speak tomorrow, Lev Ganik, and he's going to talk about digital twins and things along that. And he's really a kind of a pioneer with AI. So I don't want to steal his thunder. I think a lot of what we could potentially do, even less so from a technology on the culture change of things, is reduce the amount of space that we are building, providing, and if I don't know if it's like for you guys, if you walk around through your campus buildings and you go through a faculty office area or other kind of administrative areas, and all you see is empty cubes, empty offices, things like that. What I'm trying to do is make sure that our leadership understand what's that cost. Break it down for the square footage of to provide this space. This is what your expense is going to be, and the deans of the college, other leaders within their institution, to go and say, is this really what's necessary for us to be a successful, new American university? So how could we reduce the amount that we provide, and then ultimately, we don't have to provide as much, and be a lot more efficient about how we're providing it, and provide a better product. So trying to tell a faculty member they don't need a dedicated office, I mean, that's not always a good conversation starter. But, if we came up with creative solutions to go and say, well, it's going to cost us, on average, $3,000 a year to provide, a 10 by 10 office space, well, we offer that money back to the faculty member to say, hey, if you're willing to take a stipend, for $500 or $1,000 to supplement your salary or whatever, and you agree to work from a cube or a hoteling or a hot desk location, we can reduce a lot of that need that's been out there, and maybe give people dangle the carrot a little bit, and ultimately the university is going to win on the long run of those. But
yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we're doing a lot of the same things that the two of you have been talking about here. And, I think it's, partnering with our researchers also to see where they can help us. We look at our campus as a living lab, so we're trying to figure out how do we solve some of these problems through augmented reality and understanding where are all of our power lines, where are all of the things behind the walls and in the ground, so we don't accidentally hit something, and make our teams more intelligent about what we have so that they're working smarter, not harder. And how do we think about that in terms of AI, augmented reality? But we're also thinking about apprenticeship programs. We've developed a new apprenticeship program to bring more of the workforce to us and teach them, bring them along, train them from the ground up. So that's been a real success for us as well.
So you're hanging up the tool belt for the laptop in a sense.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. So Cindy, maybe I'll do one more question for the panel and we'll open up for the audience questions. So I know Wisconsin has some aggressive decarbonization goals. So with the whole deferred maintenance, technology changing, we also have that other challenge. So going back to what Hans said, modulation and consistency, right?
Yeah, right.
So how is University of Wisconsin dealing with shrinking budget, but still decarbonization goals that obviously has a price tag on it? How are you dealing with that?
Certainly. So we do have some very aggressive decarbonization goals. I think it's net zero by 2048 or sooner, and 100% renewable electricity by 2030. So we are really leaning into our partners, our research partners. We are currently doing an agrivoltaic solar field construction project, but we're also doing a energy decarbonization and utilization study to do a plan for what the future will become, and thinking about how we partner with our schools, colleges, and divisions, and College of Engineering, Office of Sustainability, on how we can have our researchers help us solve the problem. So it's a challenge. We'll be getting more information, but we don't think there's just one solution out there. It's probably going to be a combination. You can't just, we're in the middle of winter, we're in the middle of Wisconsin, so we have to have resiliency as well. We have 4 hospitals on our campus that we provide heating and cooling to. And we have the majority of our electricity, I think 80%, comes from our local electrical providers. So we have to do it with a partnership. So we're really focused on understanding the data and then charting our path forward so that we know how to get there. But I think back to this whole consistent modulation, we know we're going to have to pivot, and we know we're going to have to kind of adjust as we go. We've got funding challenges as well, but I think we'll get there, as long as we're partnering, and I think that's a big part of it.
Okay.
So one of the first things that ASU did was we did a underground utility master plan and study, and did a full condition assessment, and now we have all of our utilities located in GIS. And when I told you the other morning when we had the flood over there, I got the call at like probably 11 o'clock at night, and I'd already been asleep for like 3 or 4 hours. So
I know.
I'm an old man, but anyways, I'm waking up out of my daze, and I'm just like, all right, what location of campus are we talking about? And basically, I just pulled my laptop open. I'm like, I basically knew exactly it was 1 or 2 different lines that were right there. And it's like in the past, if we hadn't had that stuff done initially to understand, all right, what lines are running where, and location-wise, it saves us a ton of time on trying to locate and get down to make the repair, and then also directing our city of Tempe partners that it was their water line to direct them. Hey, you guys really here's exactly where it's going to be at, and it works out well. For us, a lot of the decarbonization is going to be figuring out how do we eliminate scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. The vast majority of things that we could do, we've made good strides in trying to do that, but until we decide to get rid of our cogen plant, we have 2 turbines on the east side of the campus that run and support our research facilities. Until those are gone, we're really not going to eliminate the scope emissions. So in addition to understanding, when we did the full assessment of our utility distribution system for the Tempe campus especially, it was a matter of, let's put a plan in place. What is our estimates on what it's going to cost? And if the numbers prior to COVID were about 500 million for us to redo our tunnels and kind of redo things right, because we put our fiber inside our tunnels with steam, and some people made genius decisions back in the day. I'm sure it was the value engineering, but anyways, if it was 500 million then, I'm like, well, we've got to be at least $750 million now, as far as it. And every day that we're waiting, it seems like, prices are never going to get cheaper for us to do this. And all we're going to continue to do is see more and more disruptions around the campus, which potentially impacts faculty members, research, their life's work. If it's tenure track and they had the 5 years to go and get tenure and we screw it up, that's things that keep me up at night, of trying to make sure that we're not the cause for other people's failures. So,
Alex?
Yeah, I don't like this question at all. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's, if Arizona State can't do it, no one can, right? There's nothing but open land here with 345 days of sunshine. And so you could easily get, a 4.5 cent a kilowatt hour solar right now if you want to buy it out there. But yeah, a cogen plant. Anybody got a solution for a cogen plant where we need complete resiliency and we get free steam as part of the deal? I don't. And anybody see something on the horizon that's going to fix the problem? I don't. So we're all going to offset and wreck our way to net zero right now. A lot of us are claiming that because of those offsets and wrecks. I think Cindy said, how do we get 100% renewable energy? Good luck. I wish you the best. I mean, 6 years from now, 100% renewable and no cogen. How the heck are you going to do that in Wisconsin, where you get half the sunshine they get here, and you got half the your heat load is higher, their cooling load is much higher here. There's 32,000 tons of cooling capacity on this campus right now. That's how big the chiller plants are to keep this place cool. How are you going to do 100% renewable for that? So I don't have a good answer for you. If someone else does out there, I mean, ASU owns a wind farm in Oklahoma, Matt. You should go visit it because we like the offsets. We like the RECs because we want to claim victory. But I don't really have anything better than that to say right now. Sorry, being way too honest right now. I should lie.
That's the purpose of this, is honesty and transparency. So with that, Tracy is in the back. She has a microphone, and if anybody has a question for the panel.
By the way, we can't see you.
Yeah,
There's nothing but this light right in my face right now.
If you can address which panelist you're asking the question for, that'd be great.
Hey,
oh, man,
I work for that guy.
Okay.
Appreciate Cindy, Tim, Alex, what you're talking about. I want to talk about deferred maintenance. So Cindy, you talked about the fact that you need to talk to more of your legislators.
Yep.
Tim, you said we need to say it better.
Yep.
And Alex said, I really don't like the idea of DM. I call it something else. It's a simple question.
Yeah.
What I want to know is it a metric? Is it an emotion? What is your best practices to be able to get that message across?
Certainly. I think we show the pictures. What does deferred maintenance mean? That means last year we had one of our main research buildings. It was raining from the ceiling because our main chiller pipe broke. And we had about 7 inches of water on the first floor of the atrium, and it was just raining down. We had to relocate all of that research for 4 classrooms, major classrooms, as well as like all of the research and faculty offices for at least 2 weeks. They had to move out, and then a lot of the research didn't come back for almost 4 months to a year. So, you know, I think understanding those impacts, and then how does that impact when we have those types of issues, how does that impact the research and then the local economy? You know, we're an economic driver, and making that connection on where our research is impacting jobs and industry in Wisconsin helps us tell the story. And then we also tell the story over time. We've gone back 20 years and looked at what has the state investment been, what is our capital need, and what is our infrastructure need. And so it's a combination, I think, of pictures, storytelling, and data and facts, and making sure that they know we're not looking at them to completely solve the problem, but to be a partner with us in resolving the problem.
So the only thing I'll add, like I could just basically say ditto with everything Cindy said. What are we doing strategy-wise as far as our staffing to make sure we have the right team members around the table? You know, we create a data analyst position to help us start to understand and start to get that information together to start processing. And it's like, he didn't have any background in facilities or anything, but he has a background in data. I tell him what I'm looking for and concepts of it. And it's like, next thing you know, he's giving me all my graphs and, you know, helping out with how to tell that story a little bit better. But I think that's part of, like, if you haven't thought before about, all right, so generally our facilities teams have a bunch of folks that are, you know, engineering folks that would rather talk to a piece of equipment than another human being. Maybe we need to go and diversify our workforce and make sure that we've got other members that complement each other. So that way, when we're trying to advocate and tell the story, that we have the right team members to help us tell the best story.
Oh, okay. So I was in the Navy for 20 years, and it's also my birthday, so, you know, I'm trying to get free drinks right now. I'll tell you this, you know, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I remember one of my last jobs with the Navy, I was the public works officer at Naval Base San Diego, and we had this cogen plant, and it was a disaster because it was a qualifying facility, and the only valid thermal load we could apply, since all the ships got off of steam in the late 90s, was leaky steam. Leaky steam was what let us be a qualifying load. It was a valid thermal load for our qualifying facility under FERC. So we just stopped fixing the pipes, and we were the most energy inefficient place on the planet because of that. And we kept saying, we got to fix this. And I remember my boss saying one day, fixing this is going to cost like $100 million. We're competing against piers, runways, and ships. We're never going to be that important. And you can tell the best story you want to tell, it still isn't going to matter. They're just turn the page at the Pentagon and move on to the next thing. And that's kind of where we're at. I think we've got to stop trying to tell a better story about how bad it is. Start telling a better small story about how good it can be. Start taking it on at one little bite at a time. One little, I can fix your occupancy problem if you give me X. If we take a little bit from here, we can move on. If we take a little bit from here, we can move on. Because at some point, you're just telling them to boil the ocean, solve world peace, fix world hunger, and eliminate COVID. And it's not going to happen.
Thanks, Alex, for the inspiration. No, seriously.
Hey, aren't you up here later? I got questions for you.
Okay, good. Thanks to the panelists. My name is Bill Paulus. I'm with the University of Minnesota. On the deferred maintenance, just my 2 cents there. We never call it that. We now call it deferred capital renewal, which our leadership seem to understand better. Deferred maintenance isn't as intuitive as deferred capital renewal. Doesn't get me any more money, but I think they understand a little better. My question for you is on P3s, and specifically what I want to understand is what's the unique benefit the P3 is offering to you that you can't accomplish without it? You still have to pay for it, whether you self-perform or whether you have a P3, you can finance it differently. I'm just curious what aspect of the P3 you find attractive or your leadership finds attractive.
So my CFO will be up here this afternoon. You can definitely ask him. But I think for ASU, the big attraction is that we love spending other people's money. So for ASU to have grown, President Crow came in 2002, 2003, 2002. So you figure over the past 22 years, how much growth and going from being a party school, highly recognized in Playboy magazine and other things like that, to where ASU is now, whereas when you speak of ASU, it's more about, sustainability. We've been #1 in innovation for the past 10 years, according to U.S. News and World Report. Shameless plug. I'll get a billboard on something around here sooner. But when we're looking at those type of things, as far as the massive growth, is how much debt capacity do you want to take out for your institution? And for ASU, it's been a strategic decision that we can't do everything, but if we have partners in the public sector or the private sector to work with us, let's go ahead and use some of their capital. That leaves our credit rating at a very good level, and we can continue to self-finance other priorities, whether it's the research facilities and or academic priorities for the ASU enterprise. So for us, I think it's a means to an end. As far as if we could do it in-house, we definitely would, but
we studied this 1,000 times, and it's way more expensive to go through P3 than it is to go in-house. But if it's a housing project, it's student to company, so it's off-book debt. If it's a utility project, it's 100% going to book its debt. So that's why you're seeing the concessionaire agreements go away, because everybody has to book it as debt, and you can finance it cheaper yourself. Unless you're Wisconsin, the only R1 institution in America, public school, that cannot issue debt. Everybody else can. You can issue debt right now, and you can get a much better rate than the finance charge you're getting from industry. So ASU does all their housing off book, and we've charted it. I mean, I think at year 27, it becomes an NPV of positive to do it in-house. But if you've got to build, and they've been building 1 million square feet a year or acquiring 1 million square feet a year for the last 22 years, how do you do that and put on book debt? Your credit rating is going to drop into the C range if you do. So they just keep building that. There's another P3 right out there. We argued about that for a year, about what a bad deal it was, but it's off book debt, and we can't resist it. And ask Morgan that and tell him I said so when he's up here as the CFO.
But I think to Alex's point, yes, we are the only R1 that does not have bonding authority. For us, it's both access to another way to finance some of our construction, if we can get there. Right now, we don't have authority to do any public-private partnerships, so it's something that we're considering. How do we think about that? There's multiple ways to do public-private partnerships, as you know. So what is if we were to do it, what is the right way to do it for Wisconsin? So we're having conversations about it and what that means. But it's really speed to delivery for space, for our researchers, for renewal of our capital program. It takes us 6 to 8 years sometimes to get a building approved. I think 4 to 6 is on a good day, and those don't happen often, but we have to typically forecast that we might want to build a building 6 years before it becomes a reality for us to start design and construction. So it's a really long process at Wisconsin. So we think this might be a way that can help speed up our delivery for taking care of some of our needs.
With that, we'll come to a close of this session. The panelists will be available throughout the day and tomorrow, so feel free to grab them and ask them a different question.